Hello, confidants. Welcome back to another episode of Confidently Insecure, the podcast where we are absolutely sure we don't know everything. And I've got my friend here this week. I want to introduce you guys to. We rarely have dudes on this podcast that are straight and white. And that's not me being like, that's like, I don't love that that's a thing that we do. But it just happens to be that we don't really talk about things that straight white males are interested in or do. But this is my friend. Everybody say hello to Abby Robert. Hi, Abby.
What's up?
Abby, you're a stand-up comic and a writer and a producer of podcasts, and you actually have a new podcast out that I just did about
and
self-help.
And a woodsman.
And a what? Oh, you're a woodsman.
Yeah.
Don't worry. We'll get into that. But
okay.
We've known each other 10, I don't know. How long have we known each other?
At least 7 years.
We have not had sex, which is like great.
Yep.
That's like you're in a very rare bubble of straight white dudes with good faces and jawlines that are just my friends, truly.
Yeah.
And, you know, we always passed by in the comedy scene. A lot of the confidants know why I didn't fucking stay in the comedy scene. But I found a different way to do comedy. But you were always around like doing mics and shows and stuff. And I said this on your podcast, but you were actually one of my like stuck memories about trying to get sober. Because I remember you like got sober and it was a big deal for you, right?
Yeah, we were talking about on your podcast how like if it wasn't for me, you never would have gotten sober. You would have never, gone on to do all these great things.
Okay.
And it's the least I can do, and I'm super super happy I could help you.
The funny part is on your podcast, we were both trying to remember a conversation where we had, and I was thinking of a conversation that I told you I was getting sober, and you were like, yeah, this is great. Like, I hate it when people are like, I'm going to get sober, and it lasts like 3 days. And I'm like, wow, you have no willpower or whatever. And I'm sitting there like,
and you're like, oh, yeah, totally.
And then like a few days later, we saw each other at the Comedy Store, and that was the conversation you were remembering.
Right.
And I was drunk. I did.
Yeah. You did not stick around.
Yeah. Tell us about your new self-help podcast.
So I have a new podcast. Give me 1 sec. I'm just going to adjust my camera.
What does your new neck tattoo say? We got to get that out of the way. We got to get it out of the way.
It says infinite intelligence.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Why?
I just wanted a neck tattoo right there, and I couldn't think of anything. And I had, and then I was like reading this book, and it kept referring to that. I'm like, oh, that'd be kind of cool. It's like a neck tattoo. And then I got it, and I'm like, fuck.
How did that happen between like the 2 days since I've talked to you?
Well, I'd been planning on getting it for a while, but I didn't actually do it.
Don't you have a neck tattoo that says unemployed?
I have another one that says employable.
Oh, Jesus Christ. You guys, if he wasn't committed to the fucking comedy bit, you get the vibe of who he is from his tattoos.
I just think neck tattoos look cool.
They are very cool. I've seen chicks start getting them like little line things, and I'm like, ooh, that's badass. I don't know if I could do it though.
Whenever I see a chick with like a little tiny subtle neck tattoo, I think it looks so cool.
Yeah, but like
I like want like a very feminine, girly neck tattoo, like right here too.
Get like a little flower bush or some shit, Harry Styles kind.
Yeah, exactly.
Wait, so you didn't tell us about your podcast?
Oh, so I have a podcast. It's called Big Strong Boy Cast. It's about trying to become a bigger, stronger, better boy. And it is not me telling people what to do. It's just me just figuring things out, and I got on the table, I got a bunch of personal development books, self-help books, informational books when it comes to like spirituality or business or just or growth. And they're all on the table. Me and the guest kind of go through the books, and hopefully the guest has some sort of relationship to one of the books, whether it's a book about quitting smoking or a book about building a business or like anything like that. And we get to talk about it. We can also make fun of it because there's also like a lot of like cheesy, kind of corny, sort of like weird stuff in the self-help space. And
I think it's a really good idea. Like I've already told Abby this. I'm like, if you do this the right way, it could be very good. So don't fuck this up. But
Yeah, I
Just
know.
the idea that like you're a dude who's going through this kind of transformative period of his life. You're about to turn 30 and you're not afraid to be talking about this emotional stuff.
I am afraid,
Oh,
but I like
being
discussing it and going into it. Yeah, you just got to lean into
Yeah.
fear. Fear is like, it's good to go towards it, I think.
And how long have you been sober?
7 years, not in a row.
I love
Um, I've been sober two and a half years.
Great. Yeah, we talked a lot about that on his podcast.
Yeah,
If you guys want to go over there and listen, I'll link below. You can get a little bit more depth about
I gotta make sure I release it in time.
Oh, or you know what? Maybe it'll just be a mystery. I'll have to fucking put it on my podcast.
Yeah, you can find me on social, and then when the time's right,
exactly.
Yeah.
And the reason why you're here today is because, like, we're jokesters. We're friends. We're jokesters. We like to fart around with our trauma. Like, we like to cope by bits, essentially, like finding a way to compartmentalize trauma into our career. And you have like such a unique upbringing and story that like I kind of forgot about until we did your podcast the other day. And then when we started talking about it, I was like, oh my fucking God, you have to come on and tell your story. And so we're friends, so I might sound a little bit ignorant just for the sake of like
that's okay,
getting the audience involved and like understanding. So like that's my first question is, were you in a cult?
Yes, but very chill cult, and I'm still kind of in it a little bit.
I know, you're like going back to it, which is fucking crazy. I heard this news like this week earlier that you're going back.
Yeah, I didn't go. I didn't set foot there for like 14 years, and I went back this summer and had the best time ever.
So the cult, I mean, it's debatable whether a cult is the right word to describe Hari
No, it's
Krishna,
absolutely
right?
a cult. Yeah,
okay.
No, cult is a great word to describe it.
Okay.
But it's like, is cult the right word? Yes, but how bad is the idea of a cult?
Oh, Jesus Christ, Abby. Okay. Let's back up. Let's back
For example,
the fuck up.
like fans of
like Ariana Grande
are a cult, you know? It's a big cult.
Is stan culture. I wonder if the word cult comes from culture. Anyways, let's back up. So you were born into a family that were like balls deep, devout.
So I was born in a very unique place. So I was born, my parents were living on a Hari Krishna commune in Pennsylvania, in the middle of Amish country in Pennsylvania. So it's like a Hari Krishna commune surrounded by Amish people, surrounded by crazy racist rednecks.
Oh, wow.
And
fun.
Yeah, and so I was born actually in the Amish barn. My parents decided to go to the Amish place to have us because like they're like really good at like giving birth, like all natural births and stuff like that.
Oh, wow. Okay. I didn't know that.
Yeah. And they only charge like $300 to us, which is it's a pretty good deal. The hospital would have cost a lot more money, I think.
I would think that they wouldn't charge you because they're like religious or just good people, right?
Hey, they got to keep I was about to say keep the lights on, but then they got to keep the lanterns burning.
Jesus Christ. The oil is expensive.
Yeah, the oil ain't cheap.
So you grew up in a commune.
So
I thought you were from Canada.
I am from Canada. So we lived there, and then my dad, it was the only cruelty-free dairy farm in America.
Oh my God,
which is pretty cool. And it's still around to this day, actually. But it was very much like, it wasn't autonomous, you know what I mean? You just kind of work, and like the temple kind of owns everything, and it's just like it was kind of mismanaged. My dad didn't see eye to eye with the way they were running things. And then also like the area wasn't the best. Apparently they're like the Ku Klux Klan was setting up like a chapter in the area. And this is like in the 90s. And like the newspaper did a poll of like what people thought. And it was like surprisingly high number of people weren't against it. And my dad was like, okay, I don't think I want to raise my kids in this area. I love
that your community did a poll in a newspaper
It wasn't my community. It's just, I literally don't even remember this place. I have no memory of it. I left when I was like 6 months old.
Oh, and is that when you went to Canada?
And it wasn't my community. It was like the neighboring town. It was like
Got
the
it.
city newspaper. We were in the commune. We were completely removed from everything. We were our own little isolated little, it was just a dairy farm, basically.
Got it. But you were telling me the other day that like there's like balls deep Hari Krishnas, and then there's kind of like subtle.
Yes.
Chill.
Yeah, Hari Krishnas are very on so many levels. You know what I mean?
Can you explain to the listeners what Hari Krishnas believe?
Yeah, so I'll probably do a bad job of explaining. And if you're Hari Krishna and you're listening, message me and educate me, and then I will in future interviews do a better job explaining it. But this is from what I've put together, just growing up around it, talking to people and stuff. Hari Krishnas believe that, like, you know, we're stuck in this, and we're in the material world. We're in this, and they believe in reincarnation. They believe in karma, and we're stuck in this endless cycle of reincarnation. And life is inherently suffering, and it's the same thing over and over and over again. And then the ultimate goal is to transcend this material world and be in Godhead, where you're beyond all things material. It's a whole other existence. You know, you're there with Krishna, and it's infinity, and it's beautiful.
Okay.
And it's our little minds can't
understand
quite grasp it, right? In order to get that, you have to be every life is a practice, and you get better and better at it. And the goal is it's an endless practice of being renounced and completely revolved from all material desires. And by being renounced from all material desires means everything you do is in service of Krishna, and that's how you do it. So you slowly, and then there's practices, you know, like ultimately it's like, you know, you're celibate, you have no intoxicants, you don't do anything, you literally just, you wake up early, you meditate, you eat, you pray, you live in service of Krishna, and like that's the ultimate goal, is to live like the most religious, spiritual life completely.
And that sounds like a lot of religions, but what
it's
makes
pretty much
it
all religions are pretty much the same. It's got some the aesthetic of it. I mean, it's like Hinduism. It's a form of Hinduism. Right. They believe in all the same gods as the Hindu gods. So they just believe that Krishna is the supreme personality, and other people believe that Shiva is, or Brahma, or Ram, or something like that.
Okay. And what brings it into like culty territory, do we think?
What makes it culty is the fact that Hare Krishnas don't really, if you are serious about being a Hare Krishna, you don't really hang with non-Hare Krishnas, you know? Right. Like the most culty thing is growing up. Mind you, Hare Krishna is like the ones I grew up with, the ones I'm still friends with, like we're all very chill. And I always refer them as different, but it's like, I don't know. It's just, it's
like
weak.
Going back to a cult. So
yeah, exactly.
Like, you can't really be the basis of logic here.
Yeah, but like we're very chill about it, and we always joke about it being a cult and make fun of people that take it too seriously. You know what I mean?
So there's like you want to still subscribe to the ideals of it, but you don't really want to subscribe to the idea that you can't be with other people who aren't.
So in the Jewish religion, there's like Hasidic Jews who are like the very serious ones. On Saturdays they don't do stuff, and everyone's like, "That is all goofy. None of this makes sense." And like even like Jewish people. And then there's ones that aren't serious at all. They're like, "Yeah, I'm kind of Jewish." You know what I mean? I'm like someone who grew up with that. It's just it's a part. It can't not be a part of my identity because it was such a big part of my life for the first 20 years. And then I drifted away, and it got completely shut off to anything spiritual, anything that wasn't truly founded in like established science.
Right.
And then I started shifting the other way more, and now I love it and spiritual stuff, and I don't go, oh, this is everything. I don't say anything's anything. I just say, oh, this is great. I enjoy this. You know, I'm not, whatever I believe doesn't affect the way the universe works, but whatever I do believe can make my life a little better.
Right. And so you growing up, part of the Hare Krishna like religion / cult, I don't really know what we're calling it, but or like if I'm gonna get backlash for calling it a cult.
No one cares.
Yeah, because I only ever saw Hare Krishnas in one place in my life, and that was at the Florida Gators game outside of the stadium. Every fucking college football game, they would be outside singing and dancing, and I'd be like, "What the fuck is that?" And
yeah, a lot of them do like little hustles to make money too.
So they go out and dance, and people donate, or are they trying to recruit people?
So back in the day, they were always trying to recruit people, but also make money for the temple, right? So a lot of them would do things where they'd like sell like counterfeit stickers outside of concerts and oil painting, like hustles. Like my parents in their 20s made like $1 million cash and literally like gave it all to the temple while like living
Jesus.
out of a fucking van and like living
Jesus.
like homeless people. It's crazy,
That
right? So
sounds culty.
that's a little culty.
It's a bit
Yeah,
culty.
it's for sure mellowed out since then.
Yeah.
Like when it started, it was hyper culty, and then it got like super culty, and then like dipped off, and now it's just kind of like chill.
Do you think the religion will ever disappear?
I don't think so.
Mm.
It's
So-
still very big in India.
Oh God, I'm gonna sound so fucking ignorant, but I didn't know that. I thought it was just like Hinduism, Buddhism.
No, it's like it was a type of Hinduism that's very popular, and it's around in India. But even in India, I haven't been, but even in India, other like Hindus look at Hare Krishna. It's like, well, they're like
intense.
They're intense, yeah.
So, but
because like.
Go ahead. Sorry.
It's like, it's all like, it's like born again Christians, it's like all these white people that get really into the Indian culture and stuff. So the Indian culture, like, oh, these fucking honkies coming out here and
like
just
you with
being
your
so
blue
serious.
eyes and your fucking military cut, like buzz cut, showing up with your fucking neck tattoos, and they're like, fuck off.
Yeah, exactly.
So like, I remember when we first met, I think we were shooting a sketch or something. It was like the very first time we hung out. Sorry, let me put this puppy down. Still babysitting a puppy. You told me that you were a vegetarian and that you'd never tried meat.
Lifelong vegetarian.
And then what was the other thing you had never done?
Pretty much done everything.
Cause okay, so I guess this is where it like gets interesting to me, is like eventually you kind of escaped and rebelled against this cult, even though you have many siblings and your parents were still very much involved. So like, how you went to a regular high school, and is that what kind of made you go like, I got to get the fuck out of here?
No, because all my siblings went to a regular high school too. Like it was just like after, like once I turned like 18, I was still into it when I was like 18. I lived in an area that didn't have other Hare Krishnas there, so I only hung out with non-Hare Krishnas, and it just slowly drifted. And then I just started, just reading more books and just getting more interested in other ideas and stuff like that. And it just became like a slow, gradual phase out thing. I was never like, I see you guys later. Just like, I never quite rebelled and left. It wasn't like there was no quite event. There was just a slow drift away.
Well, you did come to Hollywood and become an alcoholic.
Yeah, that's true too. Yeah,
it's a little bit rebellious.
That's kind of, that happened like, that was also a slow, gradual thing though.
And when did you like get your first cell phone?
I was in high school. Yeah,
that wasn't like against the rules to be on social media or Facebook or anything?
No. Hari Krishna is like social media because they can like.
They're harnessing the power of it.
Yeah. They like preaching on it. Yeah.
Very smart. So something else to kind of dive into that I know a lot of people have actually asked for an episode like this is talking about your relationship with mental illness and your parents, because you've opened up about your mom's mental health journey, and I kind of want to like dive into that a little bit, because I've had people write in, because obviously I talk so much about mental health. I can't relate to what it's like to grow up with a parental figure that has those, whatever you want to call them, disorders, lifestyle choices, diagnosed, undiagnosed. It's very much like stuff that comes from my personal experience. But I do know that a lot of people have written in saying it would be really cool if you could interview someone who grew up. And you have a pretty like radical, I don't know if radical is the right word, but like you have a pretty gnarly radical situation with mental health.
Yeah, I would say it's had an impact on my life.
Yeah, I would think so.
A little bit. Yeah.
So you told me, I mean, maybe you could just like kind of start with how your mom got into Hari Krishna and, go from there.
Yeah, I'll just kind of just briefly give my mom's story. I mean, I don't like that it's been put together by other people's stories telling me. So, you know what I mean? Like I wasn't that close, but she basically got into Hare Krishna like when she was like in high school. Her older brother was kind of like a stoner kid, and he was like, "Hey, you want to go check out these Hare Krishnas?" He wasn't that into it, and then she went there and checked it out, and she just became like super into it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And she was like, and this was like she was like in high school in New Jersey, like when like the movie Grease came out, you know, like it was like so she was like walking around school like chanting, doing this Hindu stuff around fucking
greasers and pink poodle skirts.
Exactly.
Wow.
So it was like, it's like, I mean, they looked at her like she was a like freak,
alien, yeah.
you know, they're like, and she's a vegetarian back then. Who's vegetarian? Like, yeah, what do you eat? Like, what the fuck? They don't even like back then. Nobody even knew what fucking tofu was, you know?
Wow.
And she got really into it, and then found out in Pennsylvania, 4 hours away, there was like this like Hare Krishna sort of like commune, like escape. That's the other reason why Hare Krishna is like living in like these communities, and that's the other reason why I like it there so much, is because everyone's vegetarian, everyone's sober, it's just like
it feels like a retreat that you don't have to pay for.
It feels like a retreat. It's also you can just be yourself. You can just practice your religion without having to explain yourself to everybody, you know.
Interesting.
So it's nice. So yeah, anyway, she got really into it and got super obsessed and got also you get initiated, so that's a little culty too, you know.
Culty, yeah.
Yeah, so she got initiated and changed her name.
What?
So that's a little cult. Yeah, the Hare Krishnas changed their names.
What do you mean?
Her name was Bonnie, and then she changed her name to Banu Tanai. It's a Hare Krishna Hindu name. Like all Hare Krishnas have Indian names.
What's yours?
Abhiram.
Oh, that sounds about right.
Yeah, but I just go by Abby because it's just easier.
Does it feel weird that you have a very Indian name as a white dude?
Yeah, I look like my name should be like Travis McChad or some shit, right? But
no, I'm gonna be honest. Like maybe 5 years ago I would have been like Chad, but I think now you're like a fucking like a fucking Noah. Like you're a lot better now. Like Noah. Okay. So your mom changes her name.
Yeah, and joins Hare Krishnas and gets really into it and really enjoys it and dedicates her life to the movement and raising money for the temples and living her life. And then my dad, at the same time, when he was 19, he wanted to go travel the world, and then ended up checking out the Hare Krishna thing, got super into it. I have a feeling he was inspired by maybe a couple acid trips, some like heavy acid trips, something. Nice. I don't know. I don't want to speak for him, you know. And so he got really into it, and they did their thing. My dad went off and was a Hare Krishna monk for his 20s, and
whoa.
Yeah, and then my mom was just about Hari Krishna, and I guess they met, and then I think my dad didn't want to be a monk anymore, and then
because he's like, I want to have sex with this lady.
Yeah, and then they had kids, and then
where do you fall in the lineup of siblings?
Second.
Okay, out of how many?
That's a loaded question.
Yeah, there's a lot.
They had 3 together.
Okay, we'll focus on that.
Yeah, older brother, younger sister, and and then they had in Pennsylvania, and then they moved to Canada because there's this new commune being built, but it's not like a commune. It's just they just bought a valley completely remote in the middle of nowhere, and they're like, let's settle it and create our own community.
So they changed their citizenships. Are you Canadian citizen?
No, my dad's Canadian. My mom's American.
And what about you?
Canadian. I'm a dual citizen.
Nice.
Pretty sick.
Fuck yeah.
Pretty sick.
That's pretty sweet right about now, huh?
It's never been better.
When everyone's like, I'm going to Canada, are you just getting hit up by ladies like married?
Yeah, like in 2016 when Trump won the election, I tweeted on Facebook that like, hey, I'm a Canadian citizen, I'm a dual citizen, and got like a lot of likes.
Fuck. Nice.
Yeah.
So I want to talk a little bit about what happened when you were 2 with your mom.
Okay. So, we at this point, we're living in Canada. We're very much, building our, new life out there. And then my mom had her first known bipolar episode. And I don't really know exactly what she was thinking or what was going through her head, but she thought she was driving the car with me and my brother in it. She thought it was a good idea to veer off and drive into the lake. for some reason.
Just casual.
Just casual, just drive full speed into the lake. Yeah. And fortunately it was a shallow lake. So she managed to get us out of the car and we didn't drown, which is good. And then,
that's good.
Yeah. And it's just like, she had, it was just fucking, rough day for my family,
Yeah.
And,
you told me that was like, sorry, Zoom lag. I don't mean to keep cutting you off.
No, it wasn't like, what were you saying?
You were telling me the other day that was like your first memory in life.
That was literally my first memory in life.
What the fuck? Talk about like introduction to the world.
I think I'm doing pretty good at life considering that's my first memory, And you were 2? I beat up on myself at the time. I'm like, I'm being fucking lazy. But then I'm like, my first memory is me crashed. So like, I'm going to cut myself a little slack. I don't want, And you were obviously too young to know what the fuck bipolar mania or psychosis was. And I want to say this to the audience because this is kind of like a quick pivot, but maybe we'll throw it to a break. Hold on one second. Let's take a break. And we're back from that break. And I want to categorize some things for the audience since we're talking about mania and psychosis in this episode a little bit on top of the cult stuff. There is a blanket spectrum that I think is expanding, and people kind of use terms that we're learning more about a little flippantly, and I see it a lot happening on TikTok. So I want to just, for the audience, just really quickly separate what psychosis, mania, and hypomania is. And, a lot of people think of bipolar as two people, right? Like kind of Jekyll and Hyde, like super, super highs and super, super lows. And that is kind of like the classic unbalanced mood swings of like a bipolar diagnosis, where someone tends to have what's called hypomania, which is a lot of energy, super excitable, good mood, spending money. We tend to do reckless things. We can stay up for days. And it's noticeable, but it's not interfering with your life. And that's usually like a sign, like some of the first signs that people notice about someone, that they're like, maybe you should go see a doctor. And then, of course, we have the opposite of that spectrum, which is the depression. And that's like your classic bipolar case. Now, we go a step further beyond hypomania and we go into mania. So mania is something that is disruptive of your life, which is when it's ruining relationships, it's ruining your job. You're trying to make connections that aren't there. You're putting symbols and numbers and you're seeing things. And, sometimes even people have auditory or hallucinations in your mania. That's a step further. And that's like a rare type of bipolar that I think people are like, oh, I'm being so manic. And I'm like, manic is not what you're being. You're being hypomanic, but you're not being manic. And then one step beyond that is psychosis, which is the person doesn't know or acknowledge or understand their reality. And that's when you hear about the stories about, the guy who supported Coney fucking 2020 or whatever that was, where he like ran in the middle of the street naked and he's talking in tongues and screaming, the N-word, and like that's psychosis. So I just wanted to separate that. Kind of bugs me how everybody talks shit about that guy. It's like if people have like, 100%. People have mental disabilities. They're like they're the most protected, rightly so, the most like protected, taken care of people in our society. And then if somebody has a disability in another form, they're like, look at this. It's like
Kanye.
it's almost rewarded. Yeah, the way people talk shit about Kanye, it's like every like quote unquote smart late night comedian will be like, oh, what a fucking idiot. It's like you guys aren't.
No one fucking knows or gives room to the idea of understanding like what that actually means. And I'm loving that you called it a disability, because I just learned the other day that when you're like getting hired, you are allowed to mark that you have a disability off in your resume if you do have like a diagnosed mental health disability.
It's not, it's not always a disability.
Yeah.
Right. And I mean, and it has its benefits and
Mhm.
stuff too, and it's different. And it's a crazy fucking
Yeah.
spectrum, and I don't
Right.
really know that much about it still.
Right.
But
Well, so like kind of going back to your mom, that first incident that happened when you were 2 would be like a break or, a psychosis.
that would be like mania, because she was like running around naked and stuff
Right.
like that too.
Right.
And it's like,
So
yeah,
you
it
were
was.
too young to really understand what that was. And do you remember ever a time growing up that was explained to you? Or how did the Hari Krishnas take it? Or like,
Um, it never. Nobody really sat me down and explained it to me. I don't
hmm
think. Now that I think about it, it just kind of. I was just like, oh, mom's crazy, like
right.
nobody really explained it. And then, after that incident, she was institutionalized, so like try and figure it out. And it kind of only got worse.
Yeah.
I think some people, if you have like episodes that are too bad, it only gets worse. And
Right.
I mean, I don't know too much about it, but yeah, and
Well,
it's just like,
it's good that she didn't go to jail after the lake incident and that she was able to get institutionalized because that could have that tends to happen to a lot of people we see just like in today's mainstream society is like they get arrested or cornered
right.
by the police and fucking shot. But the institutionalization didn't necessarily help.
No, no, not at all. Literally nothing helped. It
Jesus.
literally only got worse. I mean, I
Right.
say that, I don't mean to laugh at that. I'm
No,
just
I mean,
saying,
like,
like,
you're allowed to.
it's
That's your
just
fucking
like,
experience.
yeah. I mean, it's I don't know. It's just
Yeah.
some people, for whatever reason, they just can't come back from it. There's
Right.
just whatever information, whatever thing they need to hear, or whatever inspiration, or whatever voice is dominant in their mind, or whatever.
Mhm.
Just they just don't get better. I know other
Yeah.
people that had it and they're great. They don't
Manage
need
it. Yeah.
pills. They don't
Mm.
need anything, and they are just honest with themselves and work on it, and they figure
Right.
it
I
out.
think being like honest with yourself about it is maybe the hardest step in that process of like
Yeah.
I know I don't think I would ever be able to admit it to myself because I would have a very hard time. I'd be very afraid of my own brain, I think, which is
Mhm.
like not cool to say because a million people live with mania and psychosis and are completely fine and successful. But um, like, how did that affect your relationship with your mom growing up?
Oh, I mean, we never really had one.
Mm.
I mean, like we had supervised visitations and
Hmm.
things like that, and uh yeah, well, it was never like and then it became like she just was like when we were hanging, she was just like one of us. She was like one of the kids.
Ah, yeah.
So we're just like hanging out, just like one of the kids, and then it became to a point where it's like she was like one of the less mature kids, even, you know what I
Jesus.
mean? And
Right.
then it was like, yeah, it was tough. It sucked. And, there'd
Yeah.
be moments where she'd be a little better,
Hmm.
but yeah, it was tough. And there was just always,
Right.
it was a nonstop, um, yeah, it was never normal.
Like a
It
ticking
only
time
got
bomb.
worse.
Yeah. And then how
Yeah.
does Hari Krishna view mental health and illness? Or like, do they believe in it or
I
do
think
they?
I think that's an individual thing. There's
Mm.
no rule. There's no
Well, that's
thing. I
good.
think.
That's not culty.
Yeah, I mean, it's like also like fucking the percentage of mentally ill people that are Hare Krishnas, I think, is
Ah,
pretty high. So they can't really say.
what? I mean, that's something worth talking about because so many
I'm
people.
just guessing. I'm just guessing.
Well, listen,
I
you
just know a
would
lot of
know.
crazy. I just know a lot of people that are
Yeah.
a
Little
little
yeah, cuz I think
yeah.
like something I learned watching The Vow on HBO which I know I asked if you had watched and you were like no, I don't want to watch cult shit right now cuz I'm like going back into it. But something I learned is like very normal, successful, like quote regular people get involved in cult like behavior. But I think
Mhm.
when you add a mental distress to that of like you needing a support system or like a community to hold you accountable or something, if you don't have a community that does that, you could probably be ostracized from that. So did your mom like leave the community, or did she go on as a Hari Krishna, just not living there?
No, she. Well, that's one of the reasons why I drifted away from Hare
Mm.
Krishnas a lot. I think is because I just like remember growing up. I just don't remember getting any like support through
Mm.
that period. You know.
Fuck.
And so I was like, man, I don't know. These people like aren't there for you when you need them. You know, I mean,
Shit.
maybe they were, and I was just too young to
Mm.
notice, right? But that was like,
Mm.
that's what I told myself. So I was like, I don't know. Maybe these people
Maybe there's more.
aren't aren't there for you when you
Right.
really need them. You know.
So,
But maybe they are. I don't
yeah.
know.
Yeah.
That was
Well,
just my impression.
I think it's like that's obviously trauma, you know? And trauma manifests in everyone completely different. Like some people are able to self-regulate at the time that it happens and like get through it, and then some people repress the ever living shit out of it and can't like access it, and then that spawns as mental illness later in their life, especially with men, especially in their late 20s. Like I've seen that a lot, that like kind of classic story where you find like your college bro ended up doing a stint in a mental hospital, and you're like, oh yeah, because something fucking traumatic happened to them. And like
Mm-hmm.
I said something fucking on your podcast the other day where I was like, I'm so like proud you're doing this podcast because like you're just doing it because you're bettering yourself. You didn't have some like fucked up trauma happen, like no one like killed themselves, right? And you're like, do you not remember the whole story of my upbringing? I was like,
Yeah.
fuck, to just comics dealing with their trauma. But
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's trauma, but I don't know. I didn't honestly, I didn't even believe trauma was a real thing until like recently. I honestly didn't believe trauma was a real thing or subconscious. I literally thought I thought it was just stuff people just like made up or something.
why?
I don't know. I just didn't get it.
How did
I was just like, that's just some shit from my past. How could that affect me
now?
now? That was
Yeah.
for so long ago. Yeah.
How did you break that thinking pattern?
I don't know, just a little more self-reflection, and a little more reading a little more books, and a little more understanding of life.
That's pretty amazing. I think it's worth noting that like you were able to change your emotional like Rolodex as a young dude who's like in a town of like a lot of shitty people in a career that's like very hard, and uh I'm just really impressed. Like when you
Well, when I
talked about
first,
your
well,
transition,
when
yeah.
I first stopped drinking and shit like that, and people say like, oh, you drink because you're like suppressing shit or whatever. I'm like, what are you talking about? I drink because I fucking like drinking. I just like the feeling of it, and then I'm just
I
like,
like being drunk.
and then after like some time would go by, like some feelings would just like start coming. I'm like, where the fuck? Where is this coming from? And I'm like replaying shit from my past and stuff. I'm like, what the? Why am I fucking tripping about this right now? And it would like affect me at the weirdest times, and I'd like get like emotional and shit. I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, well, all right, looks like I got to start working on this. And then spending time alone in nature is pretty good with that too. And it's just like you and your
Nature
thoughts.
boy.
You can't have any self-reception or anything. You just like really reflect and just like you explore your mind a little bit, and thoughts just come up and stuff that's put away, and you get to really like face that shit.
Yeah. So
Which made me think like, oh, okay, like the immediate thoughts that are floating around in my brain, there's more layers to this shit.
Right. Like where do they come from? How were they shaped? How does
Yeah.
it like why is my thinking informed the way it is? But like I think there's something special about your brain because you were clearly someone who like recognized his environment, saw where he wanted to change or adapt or die, and you moved on from that.
Yeah, like, well, when I was in my early 20s, like I was like, my whole life, there wasn't like a moment where I was like numbing something out, where I was either drinking or smoking a cigarette or eating some food or like working out or just distracted. There's 0 seconds of the day that it just wasn't distracting myself with something.
Right.
And I didn't think anything. But then I saw this vision of I don't know what happened, but I just like one day I just kind of saw this vision of myself of just somebody who like wasn't didn't drink or didn't smoke and was like very healthy, like physically and emotionally, just like, and I just saw that, and I'm like, and I was like, I want that, and I don't know what it was, but that idea came, and I've just stumbled towards that ever since. And I'm still far from, but I like always slowly progress towards that.
Yeah. I mean, I think like considering what you've been through, that's like a pretty miraculous way of having thought, like whether
Well,
it be a
that's the
vision or manifesting or.
well, that's the other thing too. Is like you can go through anything, because a lot of people go through anything, and it's actually, how do I say this in a nice way? It's like
You don't have to say
it's like it's like if something's someone else's fault, or like someone, it's like it's your job to get. It's not their job, and it's like, and if you have a resentment towards someone or some shit, it's actually you're doing a disservice to you and them and everyone involved and everybody in your life if you hold on to that shit.
So did you find yourself at all resenting your parents for bringing you up in the Hari Krishna?
At times, but it was honestly pretty dope growing up Hare Krishna. I actually really liked it.
I always say that about Florida. I know it's not comparable at all, but I'm always like, I had no idea Florida was so fucked up and my upbringing was not usual until I left. And everyone was like, wait, what?
Yeah, right?
Yeah. Like how many, you have to, every time you tell your story, you probably have to like tamper people's expectations.
Yeah, I can't. It took me forever. I never even talked about it on stage or anything for my first like 7 years. It's like it's just still impossible to describe like what it was like. But and I used to talk shit, but honestly, it was so dope growing up Hare Krishna, because we lived in this fucking beautiful valley in the middle of nowhere, and like we had like our own kind of like, it was just like our own thing, you know. It's like even as a kid, the whole world's like your playground. Right. It's like even though it was like dysfunctional, it was like one kind of big goofy family, and you know, you could just walk into anybody's house, and you know, and if it was lunchtime, they'd feed you. Aww. You know what I mean? Like it was pretty dope.
That's sweet.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I guess I want to ask about like what happened with your mom.
She moved back to New Jersey to be with her family, and just never got better, you know, just, you know, would always, you know, every now and then would just have some incident, would get a little better and then get worse and then get better and get worse, and just got on, she was like just unhealthy, just like her expectation of reality and her life, and just nothing worked out. I think it eventually got to her, and I think she was just still they were trying to figure out some sort of medication. She'd be on and off, and she'd take some stuff and it would affect her differently. And it was just like, yeah, that shit was just, they couldn't figure it out. And then she just one day, she just decided to take her own life.
Jesus.
Yeah.
That's like no punchline for that.
No, it was horrible.
Yeah. And you were 19?
17. I was in high school. I was like in grade 12. It was like 4 days before Christmas. Oh. She had jumped in front of the New York subway. Like,
oh my God. I don't think I knew that.
Yeah. I didn't know that. Until like years later.
Really?
Yeah.
How the fuck did you find out?
Her death certificate.
How did you find that?
I needed it to get a passport.
Whoa. So okay. I'm just piecing puzzle pieces together. So you had lost contact with your mom at that point, like the relationship was severed, and then you go to get a passport because you're a dual citizen, and they need to. No.
I didn't lose contact. We never fully lost contact. We talk on the phone every now and then. I just didn't know that's how she died.
Oh, Jesus. Okay, I was like, wait, how long did you go not knowing?
I didn't know. No, I just didn't know that specific detail. About it.
So
I thought she
just
jumped in front of the train. Well, I knew she jumped in front of the train. I just didn't know it was a New York subway, which just seems more dramatic.
Happy that's like. So you knew that she took her own life, and
like we went to the funeral. Like me and my siblings got on a plane and went to the funeral. Wow. And I'm still like her immediate family. I'm still like super close with. They're like the greatest people ever.
And I learned early on when I started this podcast, I had an episode with a girl who talked about her her relationship to suicide, and I learned that it's the proper way to say it is that they died by suicide. You don't say they like committed suicide. You say they died by suicide, because often the people who are in the state of like that whatever emotional state that
Oh,
they're
yeah,
in
yeah.
it's usually not like them fully.
Oh, that's a better way to just say it, actually. Yeah.
Well, it didn't come from me.
Like they are a victim of that.
Right.
It's not like they made the
Right.
choice. Yeah.
Exactly. And like, I don't know, my cousin died by suicide a few years ago. I've never really talked about it, but it was like pretty fucked up. It was pretty fucked up. I mean, like, it's always fucked up. It's always
so
fucked up.
fucked.
And there's no way to talk about it without being like,
yeah, there's always the guilt, like, oh, what if I did this? What if I called more? What if I like,
oh my
answered
God,
the phone?
yeah.
Like, so it took me like a long time to deal with that shit too.
Yeah. And like,
I'm like, oh, what if I made more of an effort?
right.
What if I called one more? If I called one more time, would it be different? You know what I mean? Like that type of shit.
100%. And like, you know, my cousin had kids who, you know, we're very close with, and I had a really hard time understanding how someone, you know, could do that when they have kids. And something like one of the doctors told us after it happened was that like that's kind of what he was explaining to us, was like when their brains have decided like, okay, I'm going to do this act, it's not them any longer. And you can either catch them in that state and stop it, or it's going to happen. And I think that gave me like a little bit of peace, because otherwise you're just mad.
Mm-hmm.
I was just
my friend Brody Stevens, who took his life a couple years ago, I did a show with him in Long Beach like a week before, and after the show he was like, hey, you want to ride home? And I'm like, oh no, I'm good, I'm gonna ride with someone else, because I didn't want to talk about politics or something. And then I'm just like, oh, like what if I rode with him, and what if he like talked about it, maybe like we could have
I mean, either way you spin it, like it's a traumatic thing and it affects you, whether, you know, not you personally, but like it affects the person that is still here. And that's also like a pretty tender age to deal with that kind of emotional trauma, because you're already a fucked up teenager with hormones and emotions, like trying to figure out who you are. I mean, maybe not you. You sound like you were pretty chill and dope, but did that have any impact on the decision to leave the Krishnas? Was after your mom?
Not really. No. It was just a natural progression. I just wasn't that interested in it, to be honest. I was just like a young, dumb fucking idiot. I want to get fucking drunk and I want to just fucking work out. And it was just like a fucking dumb bro for a while.
Yeah. Well, I always thought you were quite nice. I never put you in the category of like problematic white dude. Like I haven't heard any fucking Me Too stories about you. So that's
good.
And that's truly saying something in the world of fucking bro comedy in Hollywood. Like,
well, I mean, I worked at a comedy store for so long that like when every person at the comedy store got Me Too, I'm like, Jesus, I shouldn't tell people I work there.
Well, yeah, because you're automatically going to be grouped in, or you're going to be called out for not calling it out more. Because I think that was another issue that like I had a problem with when all that shit was happening with Crystalia, was like other comics weren't stepping up being like, oh yeah, we like joked about this, that he, you know, slept with underage girls all the time. Like they were like, what? No.
I mean, I didn't know anyone who knew that, but
I know motherfuckers that you know that knew that. But anyway, that's a podcast for a different time. Let's get back to your trauma. Okay, so you're going back to your cult.
Yeah.
Go on.
I'm going back to my cult. I'm back. I never left.
Go on.
I was there all summer and it was awesome.
So what was the decision to go back?
LA lockdowns was fucking pissing me off, and so I was like, I'm gonna go to Canada, and because they kind of had COVID under wraps for the summer, so I went there and I fucking lived it up, and I did stand up, and then I went back to visit because my stepbrother was building a cabin out there, and then I just like loved it out there.
That's where you got like really nature boy.
I was getting pretty nature boy before that, but like I just thought it was so much fun, and
you were like, why did I ever leave this place?
Yeah, exactly. No, I wasn't like, why did I ever leave this place? But I was like, oh, I should have visited this place more. And it felt like COVID didn't even exist up there, and it was just
Was
like
there
it's
any
just life.
cases in the community or the commune or anything?
No, no.
Wow. Well, I guess like why
Thank
would there
God.
be?
I feel like if there was, it would just rip through.
Right, right. And like your family's still
There's a
there.
lot of old. No, my family lives in Vancouver, but there's a lot of old people that live there.
Oh, I thought so your family, none of your family lives back where you're going in like a few
No,
weeks? Oh.
no,
So it's just
yeah,
friends.
just friends.
So
It's
like,
great.
how do we reckon with this? Because the other thing about like, if you go listen to Abby's podcast that I did episode, we talk about this like amazing transformation you've been having this year. And I think it's happening for a lot of people during COVID. And I think it's something that the confidants have talked about before. That's what we call our listeners, by the way, the confidants, where they sometimes feel bad that they're thriving right now, or like, I think it's a beautiful thing that the pandemic has like given people time to work on themselves. And you've kind of gone through this amazing transformation of realizing what's important to you in your life. And, you know, you can go listen to that episode to hear your deeper explanation on it. But like, how do we as your friends not worry that you're going, like, shouldn't we be worried? Shouldn't I be calling someone?
Well,
I mean,
you shouldn't
we're
be worried.
close, but we're not.
You shouldn't
that
be
close.
worried because like I've already like you shouldn't be worried because like I already gave them my money and they're like managing it and I have like a lot of commitments, and when I'm up there like I'm working. I wake up at 4:30.
No.
I plow the fields.
Do you
I work
actually?
and I scrub the kitchen.
Abby,
I pray for 3 hours a day.
you're fucking with me.
Yeah.
So you're going back to like the chill spot where it's not like hurting anyone.
I'm renting. I got my own cabin in the woods. I got internet. It's fucking sweet. There's snow everywhere. I got friends that live. I have a pickup truck.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, we're gonna go shoot
It's gonna
guns.
be cold, man.
It's gonna be cold as fuck.
So I guess like we've already been talking for 51 minutes, which is crazy, and it's past 1, so I know I have to let you go. But how fucked up or not fucked up would you give like a ranking to growing up in a cult, having kind of like a traumatic mental health relationship with your mom, and then being who you are now? Did all of that shit affect you?
On a scale of 1 to 10.
Rank your trauma scale.
Well, the first thing I gotta say is I wouldn't change a thing. Everything has worked out.
Wow.
Right.
Dope.
And that's just the way life is. And when you look backwards, you connect the dots, and because of that, I'm like this good person, and I'm happy. You know, it forced me to work on myself. I don't know. I treat people well, and
very kind.
You know, and so it's good.
You know, this podcast has a huge audience in Canada.
Fuck yeah.
I think sometimes on some episodes, there's more downloads in Canada than America.
Oh, that's amazing.
What up, Canadians? I don't know why. Maybe I just vibe with them better. I've only been a few times, but it sounds like they're good peoples. But I don't know.
Pretty sweet.
And you're single. Maybe if there's some Canadian ladies listening to this, they can go find you on your farm this winter.
Yeah, ladies, I got 70 pounds of dried lentils, cooking oils. I have a cabin.
Wet now.
I have a pickup truck. If anything goes wrong, if the world starts coming to an end, I know the backlogging roads, so we can avoid danger.
This sounds hot, like an action movie, like Bird Box or some shit.
Yeah, I'm ready for like some Mad Max shit out there.
Oh,
yeah.
Man. All right.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Abby, thanks so much for just like casually talking about your trauma. And I hope the confidants know that like we've already talked about all of this off camera. So again, I apologize if I was so like casual about, you know, bringing up so much shit, but I think it's your point of view of it is so inspiring. And I think it's actually going to help a lot of people kind of think about the way that they look at their stuff.
Fuck yeah.
Fuck yeah. Tell people where they can find you more and where your podcast is.
Instagram at Abby ROBERGE, ABBYROBERGE. Podcast, Big Strong Boycast. Look out for that. If you live in Los Angeles, you're looking to start your own podcast. I have a studio. It's called Melrose Podcast. I can help you get that started.
What's it called?
Melrose Podcast.
Melrose. I thought you said Narrose, and I was like, the fuck is Narrose?
Melrose Podcast.
Got it.
And yeah.
And listen to your podcast when it premieres. Follow you on Instagram to get the premiere date.
Fuck yeah.
Okay, Abby, have fun this winter. Please like text every now and then so I know you're good.
Oh yeah, I will.
All right, buddy. All right, Confidants, that's it for this
All right.
week. Don't forget to rate this podcast 5 stars on iTunes. And if you're going to rate it anything less than 5 stars, please don't, because I'm very sensitive. You can pre-order my book. Don't fucking panic. Actually, it should be out by now by the time you're listening to this. And we will see you next week. Bye, Confidants.